Let's talk some sports, baby.
Taken by Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry. Back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by Jones.
And remember, make tomorrow better than today, and make today better than yesterday. And you know what we gonna do. We gonna holler at you until next time, baby.
All right, fellas, let's continue our draft coverage and flip the script a little bit. Sounds like we agree on Miami won the night, with some other savvy moves made by several squads. But for every winner, we know there's a loser, right? So perhaps the biggest head scratcher of the night was Green Bay trading up to get Jordan Love, but they weren't the only team, possibly making some questionable picks. So Jay, same as before, who are your top three losers of the evening?
Yeah, you already alluded to it. I didn't even see that, but listen, Green Bay botched this to an enormous degree. You have no idea how bad this is. And I just want to preface this and I just said this a few minutes ago, it has nothing to do with Jordan Love. I don't know how good Jordan Love is. I know he's a talented guy. Green Bay had him in for some interviews. I guess they like what they saw. Look, the jury is out. We will see as time passes what Jordan Love turns into. But this is about right now. There are certain teams in the NFL that you look at them and you say their window is today. Not 2 years from now, not 3 years from now. Let's take into consideration a couple other examples to illustrate what I'm trying to say here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they brought in Tom Brady. They all of a sudden got in Rob Gronkowski. They recognize there's a glaring hole at the offensive tackle position. What do? They trade up one spot just to completely make sure they get one of the four best offensive tackles in this draft. I'll give you another example. The New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees, windows closing. He's still hanging on. He's still playing well, but we'll see. We know the clock is ticking here in New Orleans for Drew Brees. Sean Payton, well aware of how the interior of that offensive line got absolutely abused by the Minnesota Vikings defensive front. What does he do? He goes out in the first round, higher than I've seen anybody have this guy projected, but he takes Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan to prioritize the middle of that offensive line so you don't have interior defensive linemen getting that pressure right in Drew Brees' face. Meanwhile, in Green Bay, what do they do? Well, let's take a look at some of the areas where they could use some help. I'll start defensively. I think that defensive line is pretty soft. I think when you look at their ability or lack of ability to defend the run, they were pretty subpar out there. We saw it. Drink was talking about it for much of the year. The San Francisco 49ers, the team they lost to in the NFC Championship game and also gave them the business in the regular season, they ran the football down their throats. You remember in the NFC Championship game, Garoppolo threw what? 3 passes in the second half? But that's not even the most egregious thing. Aaron Rodgers last year got this team, not just Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers led this football team within one game of the Super Bowl. They were right on the doorstep, and he did that with one wide receiver, who would be Devontae Adams. Do you realize how often last season we were just looking around, up and down the field, up and down the roster, up and down the sideline? Who else can catch a pass out there? Is it gonna be Valdez Scantling? How about Geronimo Allison? They had, what was it, Alan Lazard, whatever. Is it gonna be Jimmy Graham? Week after week after week, we were begging. Can we get somebody else in there? Long story short, they didn't have anybody. So you walk into this offseason. You know this. You know you don't have weapons for Aaron Rodgers. And you don't make that a priority in the first round when wide receivers is flying off the board. I understand wide receivers is a deep position, but Green Bay, they're not going to I'm pretty sure they don't have another pick until late in the second round. So, and then, oh, by the way, speaking of this, I didn't even catch this last night. I was so perplexed at what I was witnessing. And Cody was quick to enlighten me on the Green Bay Packers traded up from the 30th pick to the 26th pick. So listen to this. Miami at the 26th pick, they had just drafted their guy. So obviously they weren't doing this. And then you look at the other teams in between Green Bay and that 26th pick. The Seattle Seahawks, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Tennessee Titans. So you got 2 MVP candidates and one guy that won the MVP last year. And we know the Titans just, right or wrong, I'm in the wrong camp, but they just paid Ryan Tannehill a boatload of money. So they're not drafting a quarterback. So what in God's name were you doing trading up to this degree for this dude, Jordan Love? I don't understand it. And then, you know what? Just in the interest of fairness, I looked into the beginning of the second round, and I'm like, maybe they were concerned about another team coming up and getting this dude. The best I could do was the Indianapolis Colts at 34. Maybe they had a notion to trade up and get this guy. But they're in the same boat as Tampa Bay, as New Orleans, as Green Bay. They just signed Phillip Rivers, 1 year, $25 million, and they need help at wide receiver right now too. So they wouldn't make this move. How about the Patriots? 37th pick. But oh wait, if they wanted Jordan Love, they would have taken him at the 23rd pick. So no matter how you slice it, this is terrible. And you know Aaron Rodgers. You know one of the flaws that we think, and has been widely reported, he's a little sensitive. And he's a little in his feelings. And he's got a super huge contract that runs all the way until, 2023? So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all. You need help at other positions to help one of the best quarterbacks in the history of football. Is his skill set degrading? Yes, it is. But he was still good enough to get you to the NFC Championship game with one legitimate skill position guy on the outside. So, all in all, and oh, by the way, the reports say the general manager, whatever his name is, Brian Lundquist or whoever, Aaron Rodgers was not consulted in this. Forgive me, I don't know the guy's name off the top of my head. You know what? He don't deserve me getting his name right with this bogus pick. And then Matt LaFleur. So you mean to tell me Matt LaFleur and this dude made this crackpot pick, and you don't have the decency to inform your franchise quarterback that hey, we got a young guy in the pipeline. Get ready, he's coming. We're gonna need you to school him up in your what we believe is your dwindling time in this city with this franchise. So Green Bay botched this. They are 100%. If you had to pick one loser in this first round, Green Bay, they made a complete joke out of themselves. You can tell me.
Hey, tell us how you really feel, man.
Well, you know what? I think I've spent a lot. Look, Miami was my top winner, and I didn't spend near as much enough time on Miami. So let me get to somebody else that lost. Although I'll tell you, nobody botched this as bad as the Green Bay Packers. There's no denying this. If you disagree, please tell me about it. I would love to hear it. San Francisco, and the reason I think San Francisco lost last night. And let's take a look. Javon Kinlaw, you trade back one pick as part of the Tampa Bay trade to where they get their offensive tackle. You trade back a pick. You take Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. A lot of promise. I think next to Derek Brown, this was, when you look at interior defensive linemen, this was the dude. I'm not going to knock this pick all that much because they just traded DeForest Buckner, and that defensive line is still fearsome when you look at Nick Bosa, when you look at the newly paid Eric Armstead, when you look at Dee Ford, who you brought in last season. A lot of dudes that can get after quarterback, and that defensive line was what carried this team. So strengthen what was a strength for you last year. Get that guy. Not a real huge problem with that. But then you got to take into consideration, San Francisco walked into this draft with 6 picks, I believe. They had 2 first-round picks, and then no second-round picks, no third-round picks, and no fourth-round picks. So I was of the mindset that I think, based on the San Francisco 49ers, the strength of their roster overall, they would trade back, try to acquire some more mid-round picks to strengthen their team overall and get some more depth at some positions of need, particularly at that cornerback position. And what do? Instead, after they get Kinlaw, they move up from that 31st pick. They trade the 4th round pick they got in that Tampa Bay deal, and they trade a 5th round pick to Minnesota. So they swapped first rounders with Minnesota in the back of the first round, and they also gave them 2 later round picks to get Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State, wide receiver. I don't know much about this guy at Arizona State. I really don't. But I'm going to tell you, this whole notion that San Francisco is just dying to have a wide receiver. Did you just remember? I just told you. Kyle Shanahan, if he don't have to throw the ball, he ain't throwing it. And the San Francisco 49ers, more so than any other football team outside of perhaps Baltimore, perhaps Tennessee, but you know this. San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo ain't throwing the ball one time if he don't have to. That's just what they're gonna do with Matt Breida, with Raheem Mostert, with Tevin Coleman. List goes on and on. And then I'm gonna give some credit to these guys. Deebo Samuel, we like him. We think he's got a lot of promise. I think he's got something. I think Kendrick Bourne's getting a little undersold here. I think he showed last year he can play. So you got those two guys. You got a George Kittle who is top 2 tight end in football. I think at minimum you could make a great argument he's the best tight end in football. So you have all that going for you, but you got to have a wide receiver. Meanwhile, your secondary got some holes at the cornerback position. We saw Richard Sherman get burned at a key point by Sammy Watkins. We saw Emmanuel Mosley or Ahkello Witherspoon. It was one of them. Somebody was getting absolutely tore up in the playoffs last year. We were concerned. And then also, I mentioned this. In the middle of that defense, if there was one thing where they were a little susceptible, it was to the run game. They had some struggles last season defending the run. So maybe getting a linebacker in the mid-rounds that could, a bigger guy, more physical, could make plays inside the box, because Quan Alexander and Fred Warner, to me, I look at those as more coverage linebackers. But you didn't do that. And now, with this trade that you've done, you have 5 picks total. I believe, because you had 2 5th rounders, a 6th and a 7th. Now you have 1 5th. You don't have any 2nd round picks again, no 3rd round picks, and no 4th round picks. So I don't know. Maybe Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch just want to take today off, and I guess they'll roll into the draft late tomorrow because there's no 4th round picks either. But I just think overall with the San Francisco 49ers, they missed an opportunity to trade back, acquire some picks, and fill out this roster a little bit more complete because, the secondary, the linebacking core, you're not going to fill them in this draft now unless you get lucky with your 5th, 6th, and 7th. So that's where I'm at with them. And then the Raiders. The Raiders, I look at the Raiders here, and you talk about the Khalil Macks and the Amari Coopers and the trades that they made. I think they're out of 1st round picks now from those deals. They've used them all. Based on what we saw last year, you talk about reaches. My Lord, Cleveland Farrell, no disrespect, but the 4th overall pick, I didn't see anything last year in his game with the Oakland Raiders that warranted a 4th pick. Josh Jacobs, we like him. Great pick, slam dunk, just outstanding. I just, from time to time, I don't know what, Nick Saban, Josh Jacobs is 3rd running back. I don't, that's neither here nor there, but they got that one right.
Whoa. Hey. Take it easy there.
They got that one right. Oakland got that one right. Josh Jacobs, love him. Hate that I got to watch him run over the Denver Broncos twice a year now. But listen, and then I look at the kid, Abrams out of Mississippi State. We don't know. The jury's still out. He was injured last season. But then this season, Henry Ruggs at 12, you can talk me into that. But CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, I would have went that route. I looked at Ruggs as the 3rd best receiver in this draft. I look at CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, and I would have taken them before those guys. And then Damon Arnett. ESPN had him rated as the 58th best player in this draft, and they take him at the 19th pick. So, at minimum, you've got 2 severe reaches, like on your tiptoes, everything for Farrell and Arnett. And then Ruggs and Jacobs, I like them, but we don't know about Abrams. But 2 of these picks in the last 2 years look highly questionable, including Damon Arnett. Sometimes I'm wondering, I don't know, really, does Mike Mayock watch anything other than the college football playoff? Two Alabama picks, a Clemson guy, and now Ohio State. I'm a little confused. All 3 of these teams.
He took Abram. He wasn't.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know what tape he watched. I guess somebody was like, hey, man, maybe we should watch somebody other than these 2 teams, Clemson and Alabama. And now Ohio State, they can play right. Somebody else. Have some variety in your game. Listen, all in all, I didn't mean to get this upset about the 49ers and Raiders, but Green Bay got me all out of sorts right now. They're going to rue this day. This is going to be a problem going forward. Make no mistake about it.
Somebody get that guy a cigarette. Look, all right, so.
Sip on some water.
So listen. Here's how I look at that. All right, I got my 3 picks, and I'm not gonna go in it as extensive. I didn't get worked up. But listen, 2 of the 3 teams that Jay mentioned, I do agree with them. But my team that I differ was the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, to be honest, I'm just not overly impressed with most of the things that I'm not overly impressed with most of the things that Justin Herbert do outside of his arm strength and his mobility. But I guess I had to take into account where the Chargers picked. He was the best quarterback available, and he is a multi-year starter. I do give credit for that. I love guys that come out as multi-year starters, and he's one of them. But when I seen him in big games, I just wasn't sold. I just didn't see the goods. Seen him against Auburn, I didn't see the goods. Utah, didn't really see the goods in there either. Hell, I even throw in the game with Arizona State. The goods was kind of lost in that one too. So when I look at Justin Herbert, for him to be a senior, I mean, he messed up by not coming out last year. He should have came out last year. If he was a top 2 pick last year, 2 years ago, I should say, he should have came out 2 years ago, because this year he got steamrolled by Joe Burrow. Even a broke half done tour steamrolled him. It was like, and Jordan Love probably was giving him a run for his money in this draft. So I think he made a grave mistake by waiting. But listen, only time will tell. We will see how bad this analysis will go, how bad it will age, and maybe he might come out and be something totally different, and I could be totally wrong. But I wasn't overly impressed with that. Now, look, Las Vegas, y'all done went to Vegas and lost y'all damn mind. I don't know what the hell the Raiders was thinking when they decided to draft Damon Arnett with, you know how I feel about Henry Ruggs. I ain't got a problem with that, not one bit. But this Damon Arnett, you taking it too far now, John. Mike. This pick was about as bad as the owner haircut. This ain't gonna work. I don't know what the hell we was thinking, but this ain't gonna work. The only logic you can give me that makes me understand why they picked this guy is because he's a cornerback out of Ohio State. We do know in the recent years, cornerbacks out of Ohio State have blossomed. They didn't pop. There's a lot of Pro Bowlers and all pro corners from Ohio State that's showing their worth. So I'm not gonna knock it. Maybe they know something we don't. But just like Jay said, I mean, you talking about a reach. This is wasn't Mr. Incredible from Fantastic Four. They reaching all the way. They doing some things here. So I didn't understand that one. And then my third one was, as you so eloquently put it, what the hell is Green Bay doing with this Jordan Love pick? Why are we trading up to get a quarterback that we could have got with our own pick? Why are we not getting a wide receiver? Hold up, bring that back. We didn't get a wide receiver? And my only logic is, before I wrap this up, is they're ready to move away from Aaron Rodgers. That's the only logic I can see is you're saying, bump you, Rodgers. We're working towards the future. We don't care about the plan now. We want to get you out of here, so we draft your heir apparent. That's all I can see. It's no other scenario, and Jay laid it out, so you know what I'm saying? I'm just going to take what he said. There's no other scenario that you can roll out that makes me think, yeah, man, you know what? I ain't think about it like that. That's a fantastic pick. No, you just ready to move on. And if you're ready to move on, then who am I to say otherwise? But I just don't understand it. You in a prime window. You was just in the NFC Championship game, and it's not like the NFC Conference is a bunch of scrubs. I mean, you got to play some teams to get to where you get. So what's the problem here? Oh, by the way, we did see what Minnesota did last night in the draft, right? The other team in their division. So, yeah, y'all keep flopping around with old Jordan Love, and Minnesota just going to do what they do. As much as we bang on Kirk Cousins, we know he can get the job done. Let's see, can you get the job done if Jordan Love ever called into action? So, yeah, man, my 3 teams was the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Green Bay Packers. That's who lost in the first round.
Y'all know I'm just happy that the Jaguars didn't mess it up too bad. Otherwise, this segment would have been the entire show. Yeah, so I got, and I'll say real quick, I don't have Green Bay on my list. Jay made excellent points across the board. The only thing I'll say is I give teams passes on quarterbacks because I feel like if you think the guy is your guy, you just do it and then you worry about it later. But
no, they have that guy right now.
Highly questionable, the timing and whatnot. And they could get some weapons back in the later rounds. It's not like they're going to completely abandon Rodgers, but they denied him a premier offensive talent by doing what they did and using that pick on Love. And now we're already seeing as the second round's underway, the wide receivers have been ran on in the first two picks. So good luck, Green Bay. But real quick, I'll give y'all three. Seattle. I was not happy with the Jordan Brooks pick. Poor Russell Wilson, man. This dude, y'all go out and get a run-stuffing linebacker to combat the likes of Hopkins, Fitzgerald, Sean McVay's big brain offense. Now Jimmy G throwing to Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, that's great. That's really going to help. How do you not get pass rushing help when you had guys like Gross Matos and Epineza were hanging out? Or at the time you could have gotten Isaiah Wilson, Josh Jones, Urza Cleveland on offense, and none of those picks would have been reaches. It's not like you would have had to have reached down to your needs. Like any of those picks would have been perfectly fine at 27. And you're like, this linebacker to go sit behind the two guys we already got. I mean, I get that's a position that in the future you're going to have to address. But that's a really super luxury pick for a team that really should be looking at winning right now. In Philly, I can't really get on board with the Jalen Reagor pick. I get it. The guy's getting this like elite game-breaking speed that everyone wants now, and he would have had more production with a better quarterback on his team. But this team needs help right now, and Reagor's this raw guy. He's not likely to pick up that system and be like a shining like guy right away. And he has a history of drops. And Philly, you really want another dude that drops the ball? Come on now. That's really not what they need. Like Philly's kind of that window's been slowly closing. And there were much more day one ready wide receivers that could have stepped in and made an immediate impact and been a big help to Carson Wentz, especially a bigger body that can just go up and get it. And this is kind of where I think Philly could have took a base hit, and instead they kind of leaned in and tried to swing for the fences, and I don't know if it worked out. And Jay hit on San Francisco a lot too. I don't need to rehash the whole thing. I just think from a business perspective, the picks I don't mind. I mean, Kinlaw came in as high as a 9th overall pick, and then Ayuk looks like a really fun player in that Kyle Shanahan sort of offense. My gripe is like it's just bad business. You need these guys on cheap contracts, and you're not going to regret it this year. I think Kinlaw's going to step in and be pretty good, and so is the other guy. But in 2 or 3 years, when you have salaries and business decisions to make and come up, you're going to want a couple of those cheaper guys you could have had, where instead you went ahead and took 2 luxury picks. Like, seriously, Kinlaw, as good as he is, 4 first-round picks isn't good enough on that defensive line. You really got to have 5. There's not a 5th guy that could have just played a spell and been okay in Buckner's place. Like, this is – you really had to have him. I guess not, but I mean, we see that defensive line only got you so far, and Kinlaw probably isn't going to produce like Buckner is, at least his first season, and he has some history of injury concerns, so I don't know. I didn't care for that pick. And real quick, my honorable mention does go to Los Angeles for getting Kenneth Murray. I don't like the Herbert pick. I agree with you, Drink, but I love the Kenneth Murray pick, and I thought whoever got him would have a steal in the draft, and him on that defense, oh yeah, that's going to be fun.